The question is, what's real? What's deception? What should we be paying any attention to? What is it that's driving us insane?
He knew the world would not be the same.
Something happening here.
Truth Connections.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Good evening. This is Kathy. Welcome to Truth Connections Radio. Thank you for being here listening live in the chat room or at our YouTube channel or our Blog Talk Radio archives after the show. The opening song was called Red Sun, and it's by Villains Like You. I'd like it to be known that Truth Connections stands firm in solidarity for the people of Gaza. What's been going on there is nothing short of genocide over greed, ego, control, and I would like everyone to send peace and love and healing vibrations to the people there. Keep posting about what's going on there and let the world know, because the mainstream media certainly will not. I would like to also state a quote by Albert Einstein: "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them and do nothing about it." Tonight's guest is Santos Bonacci. Back for the 6th time, Santos brings with him over 30 years' experience in the study of astrotheology. He is a musician, researcher, lecturer, and we will discuss religion, philosophy, theology, language, science, astrology, mythology, cultures, and other spiritual sciences. Santos has an incredible ability to compile, translate, and connect the hidden and overlapping dots, helping the layman, like me, grasp an understanding for the bigger picture, so we can all be one step closer to truly knowing thyself. Syncretism allows us to see and combine the unity in all things, and that what seems different on the surface is truly connected. You just need to know what to look for. Please help me welcome one of my favorite people on this planet, Santos Bonacci. Santos, welcome back.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be back. I quite enjoy your interviewing, and I find that I bring out my best when you're interviewing me, so thank you.
That means a lot to me that you say that.
You said something so lovely at the introduction where you offered a prayer to the people in Gaza. When the sun enters Scorpio and Saturn is also there, which happened last month, Saturn entered Scorpio, at the start of this month actually, I think it was, and Mercury retrogrades, and we had an eclipse, which is the moon and the sun in a syzygy relationship in the sign of Scorpio. Rest assured that this is what will happen on the earthly plane. Look out for bloodshed, murder, strikes, earthquakes, and terrible railroad accidents, and upset stomachs and bowels.
Everyone's been saying that their energy is not normal.
Yeah, well, you see, because Scorpio is a very, very powerful sign. I think it would have to be classed as the most powerful sign in the zodiac. It's fixed water, which is extremely powerful magnetism, and it has Mars as its ruler, and Pluto, if you want to add Pluto in there as a co-ruler. But Mars is the traditional ancient ruler of Scorpio, and Mars is an action, fiery, hot planet which causes phallic action in that sign. Now, what that means is, you see, Scorpio relates to the generative area of the body, and the generative area is powerfully creative. The other great vital centers are the heart and the brain. So we've got these very powerful creative centers. The generative organs, where we procreate and generate life. It's a very, very powerful gift that humans have, not to be diminished or to be overlooked, one not to be taken for granted. We are a blessed, powerful, powerful creative race. We have the ability to create with our minds, Aries the ram, the cerebrum, and we have the ability to create down in Scorpio as well. So we see how powerful we are and how much we have been given, not to abuse. We have been given these gifts because we are very, very special creatures. And we will realize this more so as we get closer to the end of this year, where the lights are going to finally turn on. When the 21st of December, the solstice occurs this year, only a month away, a big switch is going to be turned on in our cerebrums. We will be receiving beautiful gamma rays and photon electrons from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, channeled to us through the axis of the Earth, which will be pointing to that direction.
Can't wait.
And we have been waiting for 25,000 years for this time, Catherine.
So cool.
You could say that all the prophecies in the scriptures and all of the eschatological writings have been pointing to our day. We are the ones that we have been waiting for.
No doubt.
Yeah. And so I just want to get back to that point about Scorpio. The sun is now in Scorpio for another, I believe tomorrow will be the last day of Scorpio. And what has occurred, the bloodshed you see in Gaza, the stomach and bowel upsets that people have been having, it's been a very, very unfortunate Scorpio this year in that Saturn has, in his 30-year return, he has finally come back to this sign in which he delights to do some very, very naughty things. And Gaza is just a symptom of that.
It's also a very dark, ritualistic time of year, the fall, as well.
Yeah, exactly. But the good thing about Scorpio is it is the 8th sign of the zodiac, and 8 is a sign of continuity and regeneration. Although there is destruction, it is good destruction. There is never, never bad destruction in this universe. All destruction by means of Shiva or Jehovah, all of it is good because it results in regeneration and it results in transformation and sublimation. What we have gone through, this slight period of punishment with Mercury retrograding and Saturn afflicting the sign of Scorpio, this has been for our transformation. It has been for our good. Rest assured that this Gaza incident will be very, very swift and very, very brief because Sagittarius will not tolerate it anymore.
I sure hope so. It's horrible.
Rest assured, we have reached the period where we are at the threshold of great, great relief. And we can look forward to this because we've had much suffering over the last thousands of years due to the sun being in a position which has been detrimental to the sun in the cycle of precession of the equinoxes. It's called the Dark Ages. Unfortunately, we are transformed and we are forced, so to speak, to traverse the Dark Ages and the dark energies of the Dark Ages so that we can come out better. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. I just want to say thank you.
How would you like to begin? You want to break down the word syncretism?
Yep, great place to start. Now, the term synchronicity is kicking around a lot, and it's related, but it's not the same thing. So I want to clear that up and explain that syncretism, as the name suggests, syncs all things. It is able to syncretize and sync philosophies, theologies, sciences, etc., into one. And not only is that absolutely possible, but that was always the way on this planet when we were united before the fall from unity and before the overlords began their quest of suppressing truth for the purposes of controlling others. But syncretism has always been there. I have in my hand a book called Syncretism in the West. It's 500 years old, and it's by Giovanni Pico della Mirandola. Now, Pico, as he is nicknamed, was a Renaissance master, and he was a syncretist. You see, in the Renaissance, his teacher Marsilio Ficino, who translated the Corpus Hermeticum, was a syncretist. Giordano Bruno, who lived 100 years after Pico, was a syncretist. These guys were teaching that all things are one. And, of course, with the Counter-Reformation, which primarily targeted the Renaissance, it did not target Protestantism, as they tried to tell you in the history books. That's a crock. They were out to destroy Hermetic wisdom that was coming through, and syncretism. You see, the Catholic Church cannot exist at the same time as syncretism anywhere on this planet. Wherever syncretism is, they go destroying it. Well, 500 years ago, Pico went down to Rome with his 500 Theses in the year 1486, 30 years before Martin Luther, and he challenged the Catholic Church back then to debate about syncretism. And, of course, they put a swift end to syncretism with the Counter-Reformation, which was actually designed to destroy Hermetic wisdom that was coming through. It was not against the Reformation or the Protestant movement as such. History books tell you that, but history books are a crock. the Counter-Reformation was out to destroy people like Pico. And he was the modern day, you could say, syncretist, because syncretism was also practiced in ancient Greece and in Ptolemaic Alexandria in Egypt. The Egyptians were syncretists, and in particular the Alexandrian school there in northern Africa. Of course, we know that Rome destroyed that syncretic library in 400 CE because Catholicism and syncretism cannot coexist.
Yeah.
It just cannot coexist, because when you know that all the teachings and all the philosophies and religions and theologies are one, that goes against their business-minded commercial interests, you see.
Mm-hmm.
This pedophile boys' club that is destroying the earth cannot allow humanity to enjoy the beautiful wisdom of syncretism and unity. Now, to better understand syncretism, I always have a graph for people. All you need to do is draw a circle on a piece of paper with a line horizontally through the middle so that you divide the circle into two hemispheres, a northern and a southern. And that line in the middle of the circle is the equator. The best way to understand syncretism is to get a grip on basic astrology. Now, astrology always begins with the sign of Aries, the Ram. R-A-M. Interesting word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In computer talk, RAM means random access memory. It's the thinker. That's where your computer does a lot of thinking, right?
It all begins with Aries.
Exactly. Everything starts with the RAM. And guess what RAM stands for? Right ascension of meridian.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right ascension. Now, right ascension is basically the celestial Greenwich Mean Time. So, on this planet, it's very easy to establish latitude. Very easy, because we've got an equator. So, if you're living at 30 degrees latitude, you know that you're living 30 degrees away from the equator, if you're living 30 degrees north latitude. So, we have a marker, and that's quite easy and simple. But when it comes to longitude, big problem. Where do we take a reference from? Because the Earth is always rotating. So where do you stop the Earth and say, hang on, here is the start line and here is the finish line? Well, once upon a time, the right ascension of meridian was in Giza, the Great Pyramid. Now look at the word pyramid and you'll see the word Ram in the middle of the word pyramid. Always you see the word Ra, right ascension, or Ram in all of these holy words. I'll give you an example. Israel, Abraham, Torah, Scarab, Uranus, Abraxas, Serapis, Charity, Christ. Of course, the original Egyptian word for Christ was Karast. So you will find the word Ra and Ram in many, many places. Now, the reason why you see the word Ram in the middle of pyramid is because right ascension of meridian was once taken from the Great Pyramid in Giza. Then, of course, they took it from there and brought it to Paris, which is a word which means for Isis. So Isis was now in control of right ascension. And then they took it to England, to Greenwich, where we have Greenwich Mean Time, and we begin 0 hours at Greenwich every day. And the whole world acknowledges this, and the whole world uses this system. So when you're looking up at the skies and you're looking for right ascension, well, where do you look? You actually said it before. Which sign?
Aries.
Exactly. The Ram, because that's what it means. And that 0 degrees of Aries is where right ascension begins. And this is where we need to begin our story of syncretism. Everything must center around the word Ra or Ram, right ascension. Once you are oriented towards that point, and once you understand how important the Ram is in the skies, then you will realize, it will open your eyes as to the system of theology that has been and always will be in this universe.
Because Ra means radiate or vibration, right?
Exactly. Ra, you'll find Ra in many, many surprising and interesting places. Radio, radius, vibrate.
Rainbow.
Exactly, rainbow. Now let's have a look at that word for a minute. Rainbow is the bow of Ra. In Latin, or in Italian, it is called arcobaleno. Arco is the word for arc, which we have in astrology. In Spanish, it's arco iris. Now, arco will stand out immediately as a recognizable word in English because it means arc or arch. And that's what the science of astrology is all about, arches and arcs and degrees. And the word baleno comes from Baal, which is also Ra. So in English we have rainbow, or the bow or the arc of Ra. In Italian we have arcobaleno. It means the same thing, the arc of Baal. In Spanish it's called arco iris. Iris or Isis or Osiris. So it's the arc of Osiris. So you see, when you look around a little bit, you find all the answers. Ram and Ra is the beginning of all things. In fact, this universe is a radial universe. Radial meaning that, well, it's a thought wave universe, and all of the rays of light emanate in torus fields from an electrical source, like our sun, for instance.
Right.
The light does not travel. It's simulated light. Little torus fields are produced by the electric currents that come from the sun. And this is what the radial universe is all about. Radiation. Radiation is a force which radiates spirit energy, what we call spiritual energy, out into the universe. And that force works against gravity. There are two forces, gravity and radiation. Gravity and radiation, counteracting each other's work everywhere you go. Radiation destroys what gravitation produces, and gravitation is creating forms from what radiation is destroying. And this is how the universe gets everything done. Radiation and gravity. Gravity is contracting. It contracts and compresses, and it's centripetal. So in other words, it reduces things down and compresses things and compresses molecules and create forms. Radiation, and hence we get the word radioactivity, is the countering force of gravity. And there is more radiation, or what appears as radiation, than there is gravity or gravitation. Because when you look out in the universe, out into space, there is very little so-called matter as compared to space. And the space is created by radiation. It's a radial universe. So, if you want to look for Ra, you don't have to go too far. This is why the Bible is full of Ra. Torah. You see, the Word of God is the Torah, the law of God. Now, when you get the word Torah, you'll find that it is an anagram of rota. And rota is wheel, and the wheel turns out to be the will. So the wheel is the will of God. The rota, the Torah, the tarot, all these words are related, and they all have Ra in them. Rota also has Ra. It doesn't have to appear as R-A. It can appear as any vowel. It can appear as R-I, R-U, R-O, or R-E. And when you look at those words, you will find that those words all contain the same meaning. Kingship, rulership, regal, royal, Reginald. You'll see it in the words Christ, in the middle of the word Christ, R-I. Now, let's keep going with this word Ra, because you can't really talk enough about it. When you know where to look to find this word, it's amazing how it turns up everywhere.
Yeah.
In science, in philosophy, theology, it's always there, faithful and true. Ra has never ever disappeared from our lips. Our lips are every day mentioning the word Ra. And in fact, that's who we are. We are Ra. And if you put the letter P in front of the word Ray, you get the word pray, because we are required to pray to Ra. Ra is the spiritual part of this universe, spirit and matter, mind and matter, etc. And so, as I said before, if you look around in science, the word radio, the word radiate, ramify, there you go, there's another word with ram in it, and it's also the same word as radius and ray and radian and radial, radiation.
Tamara.
Tamara, absolutely. Yeah, Rebecca, Deborah. In males, in men's names, you've got Reginald, Raymond, etc. It's everywhere to be seen because it is the king of the universe. From India to Egypt, there is evidence that they respected this science, and in particular, the word ram and the word radiate and the Ra word. Now, in Hebrew, the letter R is resh, and resh means head or beginning or top, apex, the start of something. And in the human body, the ram is at the top of the head, in the cerebrum or the cerebram. Now you'll notice that it sounds very similar to Sarah Abram, because that's what it is. In your head, you have the two hemispheres of your cerebrum, which left and right hemispheres, which are wrap around the cerebellum, the lower reptilian brain, let's call it that, or in Greek theology they call this the heart, the cerebellum. But the cerebrum, which is also another word for cerebran, the ram Aries, this is the higher mind. This is the mind that we go up to when we awaken in consciousness. And now each and every one of us has this conscious ability to grow exponentially from the lower mind and the lower chakras, and we can raise the vibration in our bodies to climb up to the ram in the high heavens. The high heavens are in your body, in your head. Everything in theology that deals with heaven and hell has to do with the human organism and the spinal cord. Hell is everything that happens down at the bottom of the spinal cord, at the lower chakras. And look at the word chakra. There are 7 chakras. In fact, in Egypt, the word Ra had to do with the Kundalini energy. This is why you often see the solar disk with wings. Let's have a look at some more Ra words. Well, how about if you want to be the president of Egypt, where Ra and Isis have lived from the mists of time, the beginning of time as we know it, the president in Egypt is called Ra-Is, believe it or not. Ra-Isis. Just like Israel. Ra-Is. Fascinating, isn't it? And this is why when you go to a Jewish temple, you are instructed by a rabbi. See, a rabbi is a teacher of Ra. And when you go to India, if you bump into a Brahmin, you will be talking to one of the high caste of the Indian system of 4 castes. And the word Rama, which is also a biblical word, which means high place, in India, anyone who has the word Rama or Ravi, Rishi, well, there's lots of Ra words in India. Ravi, Rishi means a seer. Ravi means the sun. Rama means high place. In the Bible, it talks about Rama, and it says, in Rama I heard weeping, for Rachel is weeping for her children, for they are no more. This is Rama, the ram brain Aries, which is weeping because not many people are returning the oils and the fluids back to the high brain in order to reactivate it. That there is weeping in Rama. Also, the word Hiram. Hiram, as we know, the Freemasons love the word Hiram. Hiram was the architect of the Temple of Solomon. Hiram means high-born. Interesting about that.
Sure is.
Now let's continue with some more Ra words, shall we? Look at the word rake. When you rake your leaves, have you seen the shape of some rakes? The delta-shaped rakes that look like rays emanating from one central point? That's because rake comes from Ra. Rocket, radar, ramp, battering ram.
It all has a lot of energy behind it.
These are all Ra words. I'm not giving you my opinion about Ra words, and I'm not making this up. These all come from the word Ra. You'll be surprised when you look for Ra. Ramshackle, ramble. In Egyptian, the word for March, where the ram rules Aries, is called Ra Nuit.
Rabbi.
Yeah, rabbi, the Jewish rabbi, when you go to a Jewish temple, the rabbi will teach you about Ra. There are names. Russell comes from Ra. Robert, Boris. Balarama, the Hindu god. Bala is Baal and Rama is the ram.
Abracadabra.
Abracadabra. Exactly. There you go. Now, the wife of Ra, guess what her name is? Mot. M-O-T. Any hints there?
Mother.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting, isn't it? Mother, the wife of Ra. When you look at the word sister, write down the word sister on a piece of paper and just put the letter I in front of sister, and you get the word Isis star. And that also goes back to Egypt and the religion of Ra, which is our true theology. You see, I've titled my presentation, my recent upload on YouTube, Syncretism, the True Theology, because it can't be anything else. Theology cannot be divided. In a universe, there can only be one verse. So if we're going to be talking about God, now many people have different perspectives of God. A churchgoer thinks of God as Uncle God in the sky. Oh, Uncle God, please give me a Mercedes-Benz because Mrs. Jones down the street has got a BMW. This is the big fiction, the big lie about God. You know, someone who's watching your every move, and you better be good and come to church and put money in the contribution box to support the pedophile priests. Yeah. But most of your listeners will understand that God is the universe, the source of all things. And this God, once we have the correct understanding and perspective of this God, we are able to understand that it is a oneness. It's the source. The source is the number one. Everything emanates from one. One is not divisible. One is unity, the perfection of unity. There is nothing that can symbolize unity more than one.
One now, Aries.
Exactly. The first sign, the number one. And so the other word for one or unit is atom. So when we have a proper concept of God, we understand that it's referring to the unity. And it's interesting that the Egyptian word for unity is atum, and the Egyptians insist that everything comes from atum. In fact, they say that Amun and Ra and Ptah, the only three gods that exist, outside of which there are none, proceed from atum. And when you go to Wikipedia and you put the word atom in there, it describes it like this: the indivisible unity, the oneness, the number one. You see, this is why atom, or Adam, in the Bible, God comes along and says, oh, no, Adam, it's not good for you to live alone. I'm going to pull a rib from out of your body and I'm going to make Eve. So when you take an electron from an atom and you put it into another atom, now you have two atoms. And this is what is called Eve, or even. So in our theologies, when you want to find Adam and Eve, all you have to do is go to astrology. Adam is the word for red. Mars, which is backward for ram, right ascension of meridian, also is red. All you've got to do is look up, find Mars in the sky, And lo and behold, it's the colour red. Not many red bodies in the sky. There's only about 6. 4 stars and 2 planets, Saturn and Mars. So it's not hard to find. And when you look at Adam, or Mars, who is the consort of Mars? Venus, right?
Right.
Venus is always the consort, the loving consort of Mars. So in astrology and in mythology, Mars has a consort, Venus. Well, have a look at the word Venus. Just put an E, the letter E, in front of the word Venus. And what you have is Eve-ness. Because Venus is Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Just take a quick look at the first book of the Bible, Genesis, and it says there were 6 creative days. Well, let's have a look at those creative days, shall we? The first day of the week is Sunday. Always. Now, many people think it's Monday, but that's in the secular world, but not in the true, real world of theology, philosophy, astrotheology, etc. The first day of the week is Sunday, the sun. Let there be light. And God saw that it was good, and there was morning and evening the first day. The second day is Monday, the moon. And this is a day when water is discussed. The moon is in control of the tides. Therefore, this is the second day of water. Tuesday, Mars. And the Bible talks about dry land. Mars is dry and hot. Wednesday, Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of seeds. All seeds are ruled by Mercury. And the Bible talks about the seeds and the plants and how everything comes from the seeds, etc. Thursday, ruled by Jupiter. And this is basically dealing with Adam. And then, of course, Eve or Venus is Friday, the 6th day of the week, the 6th day of creation. And Eve is the last thing to be created. And God said, let there be evening, let there be night. And he saw his creation, it was good. And he rested on the 7th day. The 7th day is the Sabbath. And this is why the Jews, to this day, rest on Saturn Day. So it's not hard to put together the true theology. The true theology is and must be always attached to astrology. Now, the problem with astrology is this, astrologers. Just like the problem with law is lawyers. How many lawyers know anything about law? They're trained, image trained, to absolutely disrespect law. In fact, they work along the lines of the fictional statute law, civil law, maritime admiralty law. They know nothing about universal law. They know nothing about natural law. In fact, they work against it. They are the enemies of it. And so astrology suffers mostly at the hands of astrologers. And that's not because astrologers are bad at all, but it's because it is such a vast science. It requires years and years of devotion and study and to master all its principles that many astrologers just don't have the time and patience and knowledge and skills and expertise to handle the subject properly. This is why your average churchgoer will immediately condemn astrology, even though they know nothing about it. Oh, it's from the devil and it's a capital punishment in the Bible. Wrong. There's nowhere in the Bible where astrology is condemned. The only thing that is condemned about astrology is the astrologers, the soothsayers, the seers, and the foretellers of portents and signs that don't know their craft. There's no condemnation at all in the Bible against astrology. And for anyone that makes that argument, that would be as logical as saying that Jesus condemned law when he accused the lawyers and he said, "Woe to you lawyers who shut the keys of the kingdom and throw away the keys of knowledge," because they were perverting the law. You see, the scriptures say that Jesus came to fulfill the law. And in fact, when you open your Bibles, you will find that the admonition of the Bible is for us to learn astrology. There are more than enough hints. And unfortunately, the controllers of this planet have just produced morons and nothing else. Not places of enlightenment that Rome destroyed many thousands of years ago, like Alexandria and Jerusalem and Carthage and Athens. The Roman elite went around pillaging and destroying and stealing the books from all of these libraries and hoarding them and hiding them in the vaults at the Vatican. You will find that even though they were stupid, they were not that stupid that they would burn all of the books of Alexandria. No.
They knew it was valuable to save it, that's why.
Oh, they needed that information. They went there and stole those books, and what they burned was, well, they made the appearance of burning the books, you see, but they are still there. And it has been uncovered by many, many researchers that those books are still there. There are even books from Atlantis. And so guys like Nikola Tesla, who had access to the Vatican libraries through his father, were able to develop extraordinary science and free energy. So you can imagine what else is there. You can imagine what other freeing, wonderful wisdom is held in those vaults, those secret vaults of the Vatican. It is a crime that they have stolen these books. And, I mean, Porphyry, the 3rd century Neoplatonic philosopher, had his books burned and stolen by the Vatican. Valentinius, Basilides, these were Gnostic Christians who had a lot of wisdom. Their books were seized by the Vatican, by the corporate fascist Roman Empire, stolen. So we can no longer read the books of Porphyry, or in particular the ones, we do have a lot of Porphyry's works. I have many of Porphyry's books, but there are some that we can never see because these are held by the Vatican. And Basilides wrote 12 volumes of books explaining Gnostic Christianity 2,000 years ago, and his books were burnt and seized, as well as Valentinius and all of these great scholars. Now, would you say that that is fair? No, it's not. It's very unfair, and they have done a lot of harm to humankind, and they have withheld very vital information from mankind and stifled the progress of mankind. They have been like a dag on a sheep's bum.
Someone in chat wants to know if you think any of them were destroyed.
Look, it's quite possible that what they would have done was kept originals, burned copies.
Right.
They sent forth emissaries and their agents all around the Mediterranean to retrieve all kinds of scientific documents and theological works so that the masses could not consume these.
Santos, when I had interviewed Leo Zagami on the show, he said there were literally books in the Vatican Library that could blow you away. They were so powerful. So I have no doubt. At this time, we are going to go to our break, and I would like to encourage everyone to join our Facebook page, Truth Connections, and subscribe to our YouTube channel during the break. We'll see you back in about 4 minutes. The song we're going to hear is Higher Place by Indigo Angel.
I'm going to a higher place.
People fear what they don't understand and what they can't see.
Returning to America, my son.
Something tells me I should go back to my teacher.
You do well to heed the inner voice. Sit here beside me and look. Tell me what you see.
He's got a crystal ball just like this one. And Uncle Frank put him into it. What did you see, Uncle Frank?
I saw this house. You, all of you.
What did you jump up like that?
My son,
I want you to get it.
do not fear for them. Have I not given you the 3 secrets?
Yes, my teacher.
They should be enough. But now, I give you the most precious gift. The emerald casket of the 3 times 3.
But it's yours, my teacher.
I need it no longer. I'm going to a higher place. Take the casket and remember, there is written that you have taken it. For countless ages, I am going to a higher place.
Superstar really turned me off, and I'll tell you why. Because the word star is an illusion.
I'm going to a higher place. A higher place. I'm going to a higher place.
Superstar really turned me off, and I'll tell you why. Because the word star, man, is an illusion.
We are back. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. There was a question I saw in the chat room earlier, Santos. Someone wanted to know, how does astrology relate to the Book of Revelations?
Oh, absolutely, in every way. I recommend to the listener to get a book, a very small book, called The Apocalypse Unsealed by James Morgan Price. The Apocalypse Unsealed. Everything, absolutely everything in Revelation is about astrology. Let me begin by saying, in the first chapter of Revelation, St. John sees the image of the God. And this is what he sees. One of the things he sees is that this God has white hair. Well, that's the white hair of Saturn, old man Kronos. He is old. He's always depicted as white-haired. Then it says in the first chapters of Revelation, and he has blazing eyes of wide seeing. Well, that's Zeus, Jupiter. Everything about Jupiter is about his eyes, or at least his one eye that sees all. Then it says he has a sword proceeding from its mouth. Well, that's Mars. Mars is always depicted with fighting tools. He is martial. Then it says he had a belt, a chiron around his paps or bosom. Now, why would a male god have a belt around his bosom? I wonder whether that would suggest Venus. Oh, yes, it would, obviously. Then it says that he had swift feet. Well, that's Mercury. Mercury's the fast one. And then it describes God as having a wave-murmuring voice. That's the moon. And then it has 7 stars in his right hand. That's the 7 planets. Then you see in chapter 14 of Revelation, it says, and I saw the Lamb standing upon Mount Zion with 144,000 faithful and chosen ones. Well, what's the 144,000? It's pretty simple. When you count the petals, the flower petals of the 7 chakras along the spinal system, the spinal cord, the bottom petal has 4 petals, the bottom chakra. The second one has 6 petals. It's a 6-petaled lotus. Then 10, the third chakra. The heart chakra has 12 petals. The throat chakra has 16. And the second topmost chakra has 96. When you add those numbers, you get 144. Then you multiply it by the top crown chakra, which is the 1,000-petaled lotus. And the lamb standing upon Mount Zion, that's Aries, the Lamb of God, the cerebram, and it stands upon Mount Zion. Mount Zion is the mountain of the body, which Aries the Lamb is always standing upon, always with his 144,000. So it's the temple of Solomon, or the soul of man, which we are. Yes, Revelation is full of astrology. I can go on and on and on. I'd love to do a presentation just devoted to Revelation and show how it is purely astrological. I mean, the woman with the 12 stars on her head and the moon at her feet and clothed with the sun, I think that's pretty astrological.
Sure is.
Yeah, it's the woman is Virgo, and the 12 stars are the 12 signs of the zodiac. The moon at her feet, that's where in alchemy the moon is always at the feet, and the sun is always in the head. See, the sun exalts in Aries. The sun will always be depicted at the top of the body, and the moon will always be at the bottom of the body. It's all about alchemy. St. John is talking about his transmutation. His vision is about him opening the 7 seals. The 7 seals are the 7 chakras that the 7 planets have given us. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the 7 days of the week, etc. They are the 7 seals. And you can't escape this. 7 is everywhere in the Bible, because 7 is a great astrological number, as 12 is.
Yes.
And why are these always in the Bible? Because the Bible is astrological.
Absolutely.
Everywhere in the Bible, it is full, dripping wet with astrology. It's dripping. When the Bible talks about when the children of Israel fled from Egypt, clearly it says that they departed from Ramesses, Ramesses, Aries, and they went to a place called Sukkoth. Now, for all the Jewish listeners, they will immediately recognize what Sukkoth is. Sukkoth happens in the sign of Libra. So what it's talking about is the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. The east is Ramesses, where the ram is. Always at 6 o'clock in the morning is the ram in the Egyptian system. And at 6 o'clock in the evening, when the sun sets, it sets in the scales of Libra. That is Sukkoth, or Sukkot, which is a great Jewish festival. It's all about astrology. There is nothing. There is not a word. There is not a dot. There is not a comma. There is not a page in the Bible that is not astrological. And only the moron will deny that.
Who do you think they stole it from?
Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to go too far. Jacob and his 12 sons, Jesus and his 12 apostles. Have a look at the word apostles. Silent T. What's the silent T doing in there? Would that be because it references back to a more ancient word, which is telling you that it's the sun and the 12 posts, the 12 apostles? They are the posts. This is why they are called disciples. They are disciples, or the followers of the disc, the Mazzaroth, the Zodiac, the Labyrinth, Mount Zion. There's an endless number of names that you can call it. There's countless names that this astrological wheel has been called. The firmament, the tabernacle, New Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem, Hall of Judges, Kingdom of God, Tent of God, Abode of the Most High, Congregation of the Mighty, Flocks by Night, Eons or Ages, Seasons, Mansions, Citadel, 7 Churches, Mount of Olives, Mount of Glory. So there's countless names for the zodiac. And it's only the ignoramus that is not able to see them. Clearly in the Bible it talks about the Mazzaroth in Job. And that is clearly the zodiac. And then also Orion, the bull, Taurus, the Pleiades are mentioned. Ursa Major is mentioned. And by the way, Ursa Major is otherwise known as the bark of Ra, the Big Dipper. Yeah, it's the boat of Ra in the sky. It never sets, and it always goes round and round and round. And these are mentioned in the Bible. I mean, it's sticking out like dog's genitalia. It's not a joke.
Oh my God, funny.
And yet churchgoers, astrology is from the devil, and the Bible condemns it. I often say to them, all right, show me the scripture where it condemns it. It's in there. I don't know the Bible that well, but it condemns it. Really? Who told you? A pedophile priest, perhaps? Certainly, because no decent, conscious, wise, living human being would ever utter such a stupidity.
Yeah.
The Bible is saturated with astrology. It's all astrology. In fact, even the name Jesus, Jesus, means the Son. And that's why the Son is always with his 12. It's funny how there weren't 14 disciples or 26 or 6 disciples, 9, 4, 27, anything but 12, please. Please don't make it so obvious, Bible writers, whoever. Why would they, please. What more do we need? The 12, how many times in the Bible does it talk about 12? The 12 pillars in the temple of my God. The 12 trees that give leaves of healing for the nations. The 12 judges. The 12 prophets. The 12 stones that the Israelites erected as they crossed the Red Sea. The 12 loaves of bread in the tabernacle. The 12 stones, precious stones on the ephod, which the high priest of Israel wore on his breast. So they couldn't have made it more obvious. If they were going to write a Bible that was not based on astrology, they shouldn't have chosen 7 and 12 so much, because everything about astrology pivots around the numbers 12 and 7. And no other number is more important than 12, the 12 signs, and the 7 visible orbs. That's what it's all about. It never has been anything else. And the moment we wake up to this, and hopefully we'll get enough to reach critical mass to wake up to this, we can put to silence the stupid opinionated ones who are actually working against their own health and their own eternal good by denying astrology. With medical astrology, you can prevent any kind of disease that will come your way. But here we have Big Pharma. For them, astrology must be a pseudoscience. So you've got all these people, they run to the doctors for treatments. Oh, I want a treatment. I don't want to be cured. Just give me a treatment, doctor. What do you got? I've got a symptom. Here's a symptom. Oh, yeah, that's a symptom. All right, take this. It has 16,000 side effects, but that particular symptom will be treated. Bye-bye, and thank you. $150 for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, herbs that you can pick up in your back garden, there are probably, in everybody's backyard, there are at least 6 or 7 incredibly powerful herbs that you can just pick up every day and chew on. If you've got some parsley, for instance, grab a bunch of that every day and chew a little bit of it, because you'll get so many of the cell salts that are vital for natural living. You'll get, your iron phosphate, you'll get your potassium and all of that stuff. Parsley has so much of that. But not only parsley, there's lots of herbs. And it's in the knowledge of herbs. Herbs are electric. They are mineral plants that have minerals that are essential for the body. There are 12 essential cell salts that the body requires for proper functioning. And I've discussed those. I think I've done that on another show with you. But nonetheless, they are potassium phosphate, magnesium phosphate, calcium fluoride, etc. All of those correspond to the signs of the zodiac. So, for instance, Arians would do well if they took potassium phosphate, because Aries rules the cerebrospinal system. So Arians are susceptible to headaches, toothaches, things to do with the head, accidents of the head, migraines, etc. So potassium phosphate, being the highest vibrating of all the cell salts, will nourish the brain and will help prevent those debilities. Capricorns, they can take doses of calcium phosphate, because Capricorn rules the bones, the skeletal system. So these people will need a lot of calcium phosphate. Now, how many doctors are going to tell you that? How many doctors are going to tell you that each individual, because of the 9 months gestation period in the mother's womb, will have 9 cell salts fully developed, but 3 lacking? And this is where all of the illnesses occur, because the 3 extra cell salts which make up the full, complete Philosopher's Stone are depleted or deficient in the human organism, and people end up getting diseases and infirmities that result from the lack of those cell salts. Once the 12 cell salts are administered to the body, there is perfect harmony and balance in the blood. The blood is purified, and it is in the blood that the health is maintained. Pure blood, pure health. Polluted blood, polluted health. Now, how do you get polluted blood? Well, overeating, overdrinking, anything that you do in excess. Anger, emotions, sensation, all of these things. This is why the philosopher is instructed to keep a balanced, moderate life in the middle path. The middle path means not to be extreme. So, administering the 12 cell salts will produce the effect of purifying the blood. So, there again lies another reason why astrology must be a pseudoscience in this world, because Big Pharma cannot compete with cures, cannot compete with perfect remedies, such as the cell salts are. They just can't compete. They must do their utmost to destroy true wisdom and true knowledge about astrology and its healing effects and its beneficial effects. They must do everything in their power to make it non-existent in this world. But it's back and it's here to stay. Astrology has never gone away. It never will. And it's coming back very, very powerfully. Many, many people are grasping its truths, studying astrology and becoming masters of it and benefiting as a result. There's only great things that result from astrology. There is good living. One reaches the higher mind. One reaches the God mind and realizes the vanity of the world. Astrology will cause you to shed all worldliness. It will elevate you to the hero status. According to the Greeks, the hero is the one returning back to the Elysian fields. But unless we go through that gate of the hero, and astrology is the science that leads us there, we will never return. And as for these ones that go around naysaying astrology, well, they will be doing it for many, many, many years, and they will never, ever return to their pristine condition. You know, people need some practical astrology, not theory, straight to the meat of astrology in terms of health, for instance. It's quite easy to determine where weaknesses in the health will be when you do your astrological chart. So, if you go to a website like horoscopeswithin.com, horoscopeswithin.com, you can do a free chart there. You put your details in, time of birth, etc. And first thing to look out for with medical astrology is where all the red lines are pointing. The red lines will be dealing with oppositions and squares. These are aspects that are not very helpful in the body. So, for instance, if you have a planet, say Venus in Aries, that means Venus is in the head, in the cerebrum. Now, if she's squaring with another planet, say the Moon in Cancer, that will be a square. Now, this is the Moon sending negative energy to Venus in the head, and the Moon will be in the chest, in the breast, where Cancer is. And you can see the red line, you can see the square pointing to there. So, first thing, you probably want to start taking some potassium phosphate or calcium fluoride for the Cancer deficiency, because the Moon is also now badly aspected and providing a little bit of a bad vibration in that part of the body. So those cell salts will help for a start. But also, there are other things that can be done. For instance, you need to look at the nature of the planet Venus. She is cold and moist. So to counteract the coldness, the humour of coldness, you would need to ingest heating foods. So a good astrologer will know that Venus has her humours, cold and moist. So what is Venus doing in the brain, giving coldness and badly aspected? One way to counteract this would be with crystals that counteract that coldness, or herbs that can counteract that coldness. This is why a Chinese practitioner, he will just have a look at your tongue and he'll know whether your body's overheating or whether your metabolism is slow and cold, and they will just give you herbs, Chinese herbs, that will work with the planetary debilitations that you have in your body. And there's only one way to holistically treat or cure the body, and that is through astrology. Without astrology, there is no way of knowing what are all the debilities in the human organism. So there's one practical little tool for people, medical astrology. I would be learning that immediately. And there's plenty of good books on Amazon that you can get which teach about medical astrology. And they show you the degrees where, you know, certain diseases pop up. For instance, let me give you a couple of examples. Aries, the 3rd and 4th degrees of Aries have to do with goiter. The degrees from 9 to 12 have to do with fevers. Taurus, the degrees from 22 to 23, they are defective sight and rheumatism. Libra, the first 3 to 4 degrees from 3 to 4, abscesses. 4 to 5, 6 to 7, goiter. 7 to 11, jaundice of the kidney and renal pelvis. Of course, Libra is all about the kidneys. So how many children that are subjected to treatments in hospital for, say, kidney disease or what have you, and yet you will find 100% of all cases will be indicated in their astrological chart. So it's only ignorance of the true science of astrology which is causing us to go to ignoramuses. So how sad to see ignorant masses flocking to their doctors and hospitals for treatments when they can be cured. We have so much power. We have so much power to cure ourselves, to know the science of healing, which is astrology. And you'll find that astrology, any book that you read on astrology will be accurate and wonderful because they are all well written. I have countless books on astrology and they are all exquisite. You cannot get a bad book on astrology. You just can't, because the science will not allow it. The science is too precise, too demanding, and too rich and exquisite for any fool to stuff it up. It cannot be. So I recommend to people to just get a book, a simple book on the fundamental principles of astrology, and start now. It's already too late. And we can save the world. Astrology is the answer, and only astrology is. Because astrology is theology. It is God. It's all about God. There is no absence of God in astrology. In fact, the 7 are the gods which come from the God. So there's no doubting it. And syncretism is the science which unites all of the great sciences. So I encourage the listeners to go to my YouTube channel, Mr. Astrotheology, and have a look at the video called Syncretism, the True Theology, and spread it far and wide, because it's time that sanity and healing came back to this planet, and we shut the mouths of the naysayers and the ignoramus idiots who are causing harm to themselves for their stupidity and ignorance, and also to the rest of us. And hallelujah as to the fact that the good sciences are back, and they are here to stay, folks. Rejoice.
Absolutely. Santos, I would like to say thank you very much for coming back on the show this evening. Is there anything you would like to say in closing?
Well, I'd just like to encourage folks to start now learning about astrology. It's already too late, and we can heal all the damage. It is the science of healing. It is the science of exquisite truth, and rejoice in the day when you are proficient in the science and the rest of humanity. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you, Santos. It's been lovely speaking with you as usual. Thank you, Catherine. Welcome. Okay. Our closing song is going to be called This is Babylon by Moses Child. And on behalf of myself and Tamara, thank you to everyone for being here. Be good to each other. Peace.
Something happened
Hi everyone, Tamara here. Just a reminder that you can connect with us through Facebook, as well as subscribing to us on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/truthconnection. We'd love you to join us during live shows at blogtalkradio.com/truthconnections, and for information on upcoming shows, visit our website at truthconnections.wordpress.com. Thank you for your support, and never forget that the truth is reality, and the connection is you.
This is Babylon. This is Babylon. This is Babylon. Tumbling down. From the Big Easy out to Babylon, people want to know what's been going on. No way to get too far when there ain't no gasoline to fuel their cars. No sound from the telephone or radio. Who will save you? I don't know. But the water's been rising past the floor, and the only ones left are the poor. Babylon. Tumbling down. This is Babylon. Tumbling down. This is Babylon. Tumbling down. Tumbling down. A week after Trina and in the street, still bodies rotting in the heat. CEOs finding ways to cheat, a government that won't admit defeat. Big Easy out to Babylon, the people waking up to what's been going on. Ask where's the dough, but the dough's all gone. People finally see who you're preying on.
Income speaks, it says forget the meek. Social security is what we seek. Let me make your income peak, and you bribe us with a 20 to the middle class per week. Third world in the USA, look who's getting left behind today. Your schools will rot if the rich won't pay. I'm singing it, can you hear my say? Tumbling down.
This is Babylon.
Tumbling down.
This is Babylon.
Tumbling down.
Tumbling down. Tumbling down. From electric cities out to Babylon, people waking up to what's been going on. No way to get too far when there ain't no gasoline to fuel their cars. Third world in the USA, look who's getting left behind today. Your schools will rot if the rich won't pay. I'm singing it, can you hear my say? Babylon, better find your Eden. This is Babylon. Oh, you better find your Eden. This is Babylon. You ain't got time to get there neither. Cause you're hungry, and everybody else is too. This is Babylon.
Tumbling down.
This is Babylon.
Tumbling down.
This is Babylon.
Tumbling down.
Tumbling down. This is Babylon. 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 Tumbling down, tumbling down. From electric cities out to Babylon, Babylon. Tumbling down, waking up to what's been going on.